Keep the baby, Madeline, or by Friday, you won't have a career here. Ethan Rose said it without raising his voice. That somehow made it worse. I sat across from him in a glass conference room, 23 floors above Buckhead, and stared at the man I had once trusted enough to sleep with. Say that again. His eyes narrowed. You heard me. I did. I'm giving you a chance to realize how insane it sounds. Outside the windows, Atlanta was having a beautiful afternoon. Blue sky. Traffic moving below. Somewhere, people were probably arguing about parking instead of whether their CEO got a vote in their pregnancy. Ethan pushed a leather folder toward me. This does not need to become adversarial. I opened it. Paid leave, a confidentiality agreement, a resignation framework, a housing allowance, and one clause specifically prohibiting me from contacting his wife, Caroline. I looked up. You've been busy. I'm trying to protect everyone involved. Funny, I'm the one being threatened, and somehow I'm not included in everyone. His mouth tightened. Madeline. No. I want to understand this clearly. You're saying my job depends on whether I continue this pregnancy. I said your position becomes difficult to protect if you create unnecessary complications. There it was. Corporate language. The art of threatening someone while pretending grammar did it. I tapped the clause about Caroline. And this. She doesn't need to be dragged into something private. She's your wife. That doesn't make this her business. I almost laughed. It came out more like air leaving a tire. 2 nights earlier, Ethan had called me after 10 and told me not to make any irreversible decisions. The wording had bothered me enough to call an employment attorney. Sienna Park had given me very specific instructions. Do not threaten him. Do not bait him. Do not improvise like you are starring in a legal drama. So I didn't. My phone was recording inside my handbag. For once, anxiety had excellent administrative skills. Ethan leaned forward. I can protect your career, or I can make sure no serious company in this industry wants the complications that come with you. My fingers tightened under the table. They were shaking. I hated that. I hated more that some pathetic little part of me still wanted him to say he didn't mean it. He did. I stood. Anything else? You have until Friday. The elevator ride down should have been simple. I pressed 17 instead of the lobby, stepped into accounting, realized my mistake, and backed into the elevator while a man holding yogurt politely avoided eye contact. Very dignified. In the parking garage, I called Sienna. She answered immediately. Tell me you didn't sign anything. I didn't. Did he actually connect your job to the pregnancy? I looked at the phone in my bag, then at my hand. It had finally stopped shaking. Every word. 7 weeks earlier, I still thought Ethan Rowe was a man whose mistakes I understood. That belief did not age well. We had been working late on a redevelopment partnership in Midtown when the professional boundary finally gave up. There was no romantic suite, no champagne, no terrible jazz, just cold Thai food, 2 laptops, and Ethan telling me his marriage had been over, in every meaningful sense, for almost a year. I should have asked which meaningless senses remained. I didn't. For 6 weeks, we kept seeing each other, quietly. I told myself I was being careful. People are very talented at renaming bad decisions when they want to keep making them. Then I attended a charity dinner at the Atlanta History Center. Ethan arrived with Caroline, his wife, not walking 3 feet apart, not performing some tense public arrangement. His hand rested at the small of her back while photographers took pictures. She whispered something to him. He laughed. They looked married because, as it turned out, they were. The next morning, I walked into his office. We're done. He looked up from his laptop. Because of last night? That was remarkably fast. It was a board obligation. She was wearing your wedding ring. So was I. I stared at him. I appreciate you making my argument for me. He tried to explain. Separate bedrooms, family expectations, board appearances. It became a very organized presentation about why his marriage was both over and apparently still attending events. I left. 3 weeks later, I was sitting in a medical office staring at a positive pregnancy test. I had already taken 2 at home. Apparently, I believed the 3rd one might respect my preference. The nurse gave me a paper bracelet. I twisted it around my wrist until the edge left a red mark. I was pregnant. I didn't know what I wanted. That frightened me more than anything. I told Ethan 2 days later. His first question was, how far along? Not, are you okay? Not, do you need anything? About 7 weeks. He stood and went to the window. Don't make any decisions yet. I frowned. I wasn't planning to make one between lunch and my 2:30. I'm serious. Then he started listing things. A private doctor, paid leave, a furnished apartment, transportation, privacy. He had somehow built an entire support package before asking me a single question. What do you want? I said. I want you protected. That isn't what I asked. His expression shifted. Just a little. This affects more than you. My stomach tightened. My pregnancy? You know what I mean. I picked up my purse. No, I'm starting to realize I don't. As I reached the door, he said, don't do anything until we talk again. I turned. For the first time, it didn't sound like concern. It sounded like instruction. The retaliation started with my calendar. Not a threat, not a dramatic meeting, just an empty block where my Monday strategy review used to be. At 9:20, one of my largest client accounts was reassigned. By lunch, my annual bonus review had been postponed. At 2, my access to a succession planning folder disappeared. Individually, each thing could be explained. Together, they made my skin itch. I called Rebecca Sloan, our chief people officer. We're evaluating team alignment, she told me. My performance rating was excellent 3 weeks ago. It still is. Then what are we aligning? A few communication concerns have surfaced. With whom? I can't discuss confidential feedback. Of course. Anonymous feedback. The corporate equivalent of being haunted by a ghost with an MBA. I called Sienna next. Do not start downloading company files. I wasn't going to. You paused. I was thinking. You think in ways that create billable hours. She told me to keep only things I was legally entitled to preserve. My own reviews. Messages sent directly to me. My calendar. Notes I had personally made. No confidential files. No amateur investigation. That afternoon, Ethan called. I heard you spoke with HR. You hear a lot. I'm trying to stop this from becoming bigger than it needs to be. You reassigned my client. Business decision. My bonus? Under review. My meeting? Silence. I waited. He finally said, senior companies talk to each other, Madeline. I sat very still. What does that mean? It means reputation matters. Mine? Everyone's. There was a long pause. I hated that my mouth had gone dry. Are you threatening to blacklist me? No. He sounded almost insulted. I'm telling you consequences exist. That sentence stayed with me. Not because it was clever, because it was vague enough to be denied later. That evening, I wrote him an email. 6 paragraphs. Angry, specific, legally suicidal. I deleted it. My second attempt somehow managed to sound both furious and desperate. Deleted that too. Eventually, I closed the laptop and ate half a sandwich over the sink. At 8:43 the next morning, HR sent me a document titled Mutual Separation Proposal. I stared at the screen. I had not resigned. I had not asked to leave. Nobody had even formally said my performance was deficient. Yet someone had already decided how much my exit was worth. I opened the document. Then I checked the creation date. It had been drafted the day after I refused Ethan's first support proposal. That was when the fear changed. He wasn't trying to convince me anymore. He was preparing a version of events where I disappeared voluntarily. I spent Saturday alone. No Ethan. No lawyer. No HR language pretending my life was a workflow problem. Just me, a blanket, a notebook, and tea I reheated 3 times without actually drinking. I was angry at Ethan. Then I was angry at myself. Then, for about 10 minutes, I still feel guilty remembering. I was angry at the pregnancy, not the baby, the situation. The way every decision suddenly seemed to belong to somebody else. I sat on the bathroom floor and cried. There was nothing cinematic about it. The tile was cold, my left leg went numb, and at some point I noticed I had been staring at a bottle of shampoo for 6 minutes. By Sunday evening, I knew I wanted to continue the pregnancy. The decision scared me. It also felt like the first thing in weeks that was actually mine. I wrote 1 sentence in my notebook. Keeping this pregnancy is not the same as obeying Ethan. Monday morning I told Sienna. Are you sure? Yes. Because this is what you want? Yes. Not because of him? No. She nodded. I exhaled. You know, asking me 3 times is annoying. You pay me to be annoying. Strong business model. At work, a new HR notice waited in my inbox. Performance concern. Declining executive support arrangements. I read it twice. Then once more because apparently repetition was going to make the sentence become English. June Ellis appeared at my door carrying folders. She had been Ethan's executive assistant for 14 years and missed very little. Are you talking to yourself? Only because everyone else has started using phrases like executive support arrangements. She gave me a look, then lowered her voice. Why were you removed from succession planning? I stopped. What? Your name came off the meeting series Friday. I didn't know. That wasn't HR. My stomach tightened. How do you know? I manage Ethan's calendar. Fair. June did not ask what was happening. I did not tell her about the pregnancy. She simply said, whatever this is, keep your own records straight. Then she left. That evening, I compared dates at my kitchen table. Client reassigned after I refused Ethan. Bonus frozen the same day. Separation proposal created before anyone claimed I had performance issues. Succession meetings removed by Ethan's office. I sat there with my pen against my lip. I had spent days wondering whether I was being paranoid. Now I had the opposite problem. The timeline was beginning to look less like paranoia and more like planning. Ethan's second offer arrived in a cream folder. Apparently coercion photographs better on expensive stationery. Sienna opened it before I did. 12 months paid leave. She turned the page. Equity payout, health coverage, housing. That sounds suspiciously generous. It improves. That did not sound like improve. It wasn't. I leaned closer. I had to resign. I could not contact any board member. I could not contact Caroline. And I had to notify Ethan before making any material medical decision related to the pregnancy. I stared at that line. He wants notification rights? He wants language vague enough to deny that's what he wants. I asked Ethan to meet me in a hotel lounge in Buckhead. Public, neutral, no office doors. I placed the document between us. Why do you care this much? I told you I want stability. For whom? He looked tired. That almost made me angry enough to laugh. My father is stepping back from the trust. I waited. The family structure is being reviewed. What does that have to do with my pregnancy? He hesitated. With the child. There it was. Ethan explained that the Rowe family trust did not require him to have children. Nothing that ridiculous. But future beneficial interests and branch representation changed if he had a legally recognized child. My pregnancy strengthened his position. I sat there trying to process the fact that he had turned an ultrasound into governance strategy. You discussed this with your family? Generally. I haven't even told my sister. You're being emotional. I stared at him. Yes, Ethan. Pregnancy has been known to attract emotion. His expression hardened. Sign the agreement. No. Think carefully. I have. I left. That night, he called while I was getting ready for bed. I let it go to voicemail. His voice came through the speaker. Madeline, I'm trying to protect you from making a decision that damages everyone involved. If you make the wrong choice, don't expect me to protect what happens to your career. I listened once, then again. The second time, I stopped hearing the part about protection. I heard ownership. I sent the voicemail to Sienna. She called immediately. Do not respond. I won't. You sound calm? I'm not. That was true. My heart was beating too fast. I was sitting on the edge of my bed with one sock on and one sock off because I had apparently forgotten what task I was doing. For weeks, Ethan had talked as though danger was something he could shield me from. That voicemail finally made the structure clear. He was the danger, and he had just recorded himself explaining it. Caroline contacted Sienna before I contacted her. That was not how I had imagined meeting Ethan's wife. In most versions in my head, she arrived angry, possibly with a lawyer, possibly with something heavier. Instead, Caroline Rowe walked into Sienna's midtown conference room alone. 44. Navy suit. Perfect posture. She looked like she could cross-examine furniture. I need to ask you something uncomfortable, she said. I think we're well past comfortable. The corner of her mouth moved, barely. A housing payment was submitted through an executive retention account under your name. I never accepted housing. I know. That stopped me. Caroline folded her hands. Ethan told the board you were pressuring him for money. My face went hot. What? He said an employee he had a brief relationship with threatened reputational damage unless he provided financial support. For a second, I could not speak. Then Caroline asked, Did he tell you we were separated? Yes. She closed her eyes, only for a moment. We never were. I looked down at my hands. I'm sorry. I'm not asking you for an apology. I know, I still owe you one. That silence was harder than anger. I told her the affair had been consensual. I told her I ended it before I knew I was pregnant. I did not say I had been fooled, as if that erased what I had done. Then Sienna asked whether I wanted to play the recording. My stomach tightened. Yes. Ethan's voice filled the room. Keep the baby, Madeline, or by Friday you won't have a career here. Caroline did not move. Then came the NDA. The threat about my reputation, the part about other companies not wanting complications. When it ended, Caroline said, again. We played it a second time. She stared at the table. Then she said quietly, he told his father there was a child coming. I looked at her. When? Last week. I hadn't decided yet. I understand that now. Caroline leaned back. Something in her face changed. Not warmth, not forgiveness. Clarity. I am not helping you because I like you. Fair. He used company resources. He lied to the board, and he turned your pregnancy into part of a family governance discussion. I nodded. She stood, then paused near the door. Ethan has spent 15 years convincing people that whatever he wants was their idea. After she left, I sat there for a while. Caroline had not chosen me over her husband. That would have been too simple. She had chosen evidence over his version of reality. For Ethan, that was probably worse. Ethan fired me 48 hours after Caroline heard the recording, by email. Apparently we had moved from threats to digital transformation. The termination notice accused me of dishonesty, undisclosed conflict of interest, and attempted coercion of a senior executive. I read that last part 3 times. Somehow I had become the person coercing Ethan because I would not let him dictate my pregnancy. The letter also demanded repayment of part of my bonus and warned that Roe Meridian would vigorously defend its reputation. Sienna called. Do not respond. I'm considering putting that on a t-shirt. I'm serious. So am I. 2 days later, a recruiter canceled an interview. She was polite, carefully polite. We received additional context regarding your departure. From whom? I can't disclose that. Of course. For the first time, Ethan's threat stopped feeling theoretical. He could damage me. Maybe he already had. That evening, I developed a sharp pain low in my abdomen. I tried telling myself it was stress. Then I tried telling myself it was normal. Then I realized I had no medical training and drove to the hospital. Sienna met me there. The waiting room lights were too bright. I sat with both hands over my stomach and did not say much. There was nothing funny about that hour. The doctor eventually told me the pregnancy looked fine, no immediate complication. Rest, monitor symptoms, call if anything changed. I made it to the parking garage before I cried. Not because something terrible had happened, because for 90 minutes I had been terrified it might. Sienna stood beside me. You can stop. I wiped my face. What? The fight. You can settle, walk away, whatever protects you. She wasn't telling me what to do. That mattered. The next morning, June contacted her. June had not copied secret files. What she did have were her own calendar notes. One entry showed Ethan directing HR to prepare my separation package 3 days before he later claimed I had tried to coerce him. Another showed him requesting a reputation risk assessment immediately after I refused his first proposal. I stared at the dates. Sienna said, "This is important. I know. Do not sound happy." I'm not. I wasn't. I was tired, angry, still frightened, but the timeline did something Ethan's threats could not. It made his story measurable. He said I became a threat and forced his hand. His own calendar showed he had started preparing my removal before I ever fought back. For the first time since the hospital, I felt steady. Not safe. Just steady enough to keep going. The special committee interviewed me for 4 hours. By hour 3, I had formed an emotional attachment to the bowl of almonds on the conference table. The lead attorney started with the affair. Was the relationship consensual? Yes. Did you know Mr. Rowe was married? Yes. Did he tell you he was separated? Yes. Did you verify that? I paused. No. The word stayed in the room. I let it. I made a bad personal decision, I said. I believed something because believing it made my life easier. Sienna shifted slightly beside me, probably editing me internally. The attorney continued, Did Mr. Rowe force you into the relationship? No. Did he later pressure you regarding the pregnancy? Yes. That distinction mattered. I was not asking anyone to erase my mistake. I was asking them not to treat it as permission for his. Ethan's attorney described the recording as an emotional private dispute taken out of context. Then the committee reviewed the dates. My client reassignment, bonus delay, separation draft, reputation review, all followed my refusal to accept Ethan's proposed arrangement. June confirmed when Ethan issued the instructions. HR confirmed the performance concerns were created afterward. Then Caroline joined remotely. She provided notes from a family governance discussion Ethan had told his father. A child is on the way and should be considered in the next trust allocation. The date appeared on the screen. 4 days before I decided to continue the pregnancy. I stared at it. Can you repeat the date? The attorney did. Something inside me dropped. Until then, I had been fighting over my job, my name, my bonus, my future. But Ethan had taken a pregnancy I had not even decided how to feel about and presented it as an asset in a family discussion. I started crying. Quietly, I wiped my face. Sorry. The lead attorney shook her head. You don't need to apologize. For once, I did not argue. Later, they questioned Ethan. He denied retaliation, said concerns about my judgment existed before the pregnancy dispute. Then they placed my most recent performance review in front of him. Top rating. Recommended for expanded responsibility. He stared at it. No confession. No dramatic collapse. Just a long pause. Old paperwork had to cooperate with his new story. When I left, Caroline was near the lobby. Neither of us hugged. That would have been deeply strange. She said he thought everyone would protect whichever version benefited them. I looked at her. For a while, we did. She nodded. So did I. That was probably the closest either of us would come to forgiveness that day. The board suspended Ethan 2 days later. There were no police cars, no handcuffs, no security team dramatically escorting him through the lobby while employees applauded. Real corporate accountability has disappointing cinematography. The special committee found retaliation, misuse of executive authority, undisclosed conflicts, manipulation of HR procedures, and improper company spending connected to the housing proposal. They did not say Ethan had committed a crime simply because he pressured me over the pregnancy. That mattered. 3 weeks later, the board removed him as CEO. His pending incentive award was canceled. The Rowe family postponed its succession review while independent trustees examined how my pregnancy had been introduced into those discussions. Caroline did not become CEO. Good. I did not want the ending to be one Rowe replacing another, while everyone pretended that counted as reform. The board appointed an outside interim executive. My case settled 2 months later. Rowe Meridian corrected my employment record. They withdrew the allegation that I had attempted to coerce Ethan. My earned bonus and vested equity were paid, legal fees covered. The company agreed not to interfere with future references. Sienna slid the final agreement toward me. How do you feel? Tired. Anything else? Hungry. She smiled. That's the most normal thing you've said in months. I signed. Then Rowe Meridian offered me my job back, with a promotion. Senior vice president, more money, larger team, a very tasteful office which HR mentioned twice as though windows were a recognized form of trauma treatment. I said no. The interim CEO looked surprised. You wanted your career restored. I did. This restores it. I shook my head. This restores a title. I wasn't angry. That surprised me more than him. I simply didn't want the next 5 years of meetings to begin with everyone silently remembering why I was there. Caroline filed for divorce. She told me herself, I'm not doing it because of you. I know. I should have done it years ago. I did not ask for more. We were not friends. Maybe we never would be. Respect was enough. Before I left Rowe Meridian for the last time, June met me in the lobby. You okay? I think so. She smiled. Your replacement already hates Ethan's calendar system. I looked at her. Finally, a consequence I can support. She laughed. So did I. Then I walked out. No dramatic music, no triumphant speech, just sunlight, traffic, and the strange realization that leaving no longer felt like losing. 16 months later, I was vice president of strategic partnerships at another Atlanta development firm. Different logo, different CEO, same unreasonable number of glass conference rooms. My daughter, Lucy, was 8 months old. That morning, I arrived at work with dried formula on one sleeve and only one earring. Nobody mentioned either. Either my coworkers were mature adults or afraid of me. I accepted both possibilities. Around 11, one of my managers, Tessa Grant, appeared at my door. Do you have a minute? She looked nervous. Come in. A senior executive had been pushing her to sign a vendor arrangement she did not fully understand. He says I'm slowing the project. My body reacted before I could stop it. Shoulders tight, jaw locked. For half a second, I was back in Ethan's conference room. My instinct was immediate. Take the file. Call legal. Solve it. I actually reached toward the folder, then stopped. What do you want to do? Tessa blinked. I think we should hold it until procurement explains the terms. Okay. That's it? What else? I thought you'd tell me. I leaned back. No, I'll support you, but it's your recommendation. What if he gets angry? He probably will. She looked concerned. People are allowed to be angry, I said. They're not allowed to borrow your judgment because they outrank you. After she left, I sat there for a minute. Ethan had told me what the company needed, what the family needed, what my career needed. He had never asked me what I wanted. That afternoon, I picked Lucy up from daycare. She had lost one sock. I searched the diaper bag, the car seat, under the passenger seat, no sock. Motherhood, I had learned, was largely inventory control with unreliable documentation. Caroline and I texted occasionally. Birthdays, legal updates, nothing intimate. Once she sent me a picture of a restaurant Ethan used to insist nobody ordered dessert at. I sent back a photo of cheesecake. That was probably our healthiest conversation. Roe Meridian eventually adopted stronger executive relationship disclosures, independent retaliation reviews, and tighter restrictions on company resources being used in personal settlements. Good. I hope the policies mattered when someone actually needed them. That evening, I pushed Lucy through Piedmont Park. She fell asleep before the city lights came on. For months, I thought winning meant Ethan losing his title. It didn't. His title was never what I needed back. I needed ownership of my choices, my body, my work, my future. Ethan tried to turn my pregnancy into leverage. He failed, not because I destroyed him, because eventually I stopped allowing his decisions to define what happened next. 18 months after Ethan left Roe Meridian, the company was still there. That mattered more to me than I expected. Most of the people who worked there had never known what happened in that conference room. They had mortgages, kids, deadlines, bad coffee. They did not deserve to lose everything because one powerful man thought consequences were for other people. June eventually became chief of staff to the interim CEO. On her first day, she texted me, "I control the calendar now." I replied, "Use your power responsibly." She sent back a skull emoji. Caroline finished the divorce and returned to corporate law part-time. We stayed in occasional contact, but neither of us tried to force some beautiful friendship out of a situation that had never been beautiful. Sienna still reminded me that half her job was stopping smart clients from sending stupid emails. She remained annoyingly correct. Lucy learned to walk, then to run, then to remove one shoe in public and make it disappear. Work became less dramatic. Some weeks went well, some decisions did not. That stopped terrifying me. The biggest change was simple. When someone on my team disagreed with me, I no longer heard disloyalty. I heard information. Ethan once tried to make my future depend on obeying him. Instead, I learned something better. Power was never getting people to say yes. It was making sure they could safely say no.